All right. So, how long have you lived in Prince George's County?
I've lived in Prince George's County since 1980. I bought a house with my mother in the Temple Hills area,
Okay.
primarily because we got more for our money in Prince George's County.
Okay. Where did y'all come from to move into?
Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
Deanwood,
Oh yeah. Okay.
Deanwood neighborhood. Um, 50th place between Nash and Meade.
Okay. Okay. And y'all just moved in for like a, I guess, better living situation.
Not really, just suburb. Well, my street in Deanwood, my grandparents built their house there in 1947. They had about an acre of land. They had horses, goat, chickens, and a couple other animals, and grape arbors and fruit trees. And the city came along and told them they couldn't have farm animals in city limits. So the horses and the goat had to go.
Okay.
When my grandparents died, there was a dispute about who inherited the property. So my mother decided to opt out, and we moved to Prince George's County.
What are your earliest memories of quilting? When did you
My grandmother, Martha Brennan Culbreth, and her sisters, Lucille and Laura, had made quilts from old clothing, from older, blankets, and they used them to make what they call pallets. When people came to visit, the children got put out of the bed first, and then they made these pallets on the floor, and that's where the children slept. They were extra warmth when the oil ran out and the fire didn't reach upstairs, so there was no fireplace on the second floor, so we had to keep warm.
Okay.
Yeah. And all of those quilts are lost. I have no idea what happened to them once my grandmother died.
Now, when was the first time you started to quilt yourself?
She taught me how to sew on a
Your
treadle
grandmother.
machine. And I took sewing in junior high school. They wouldn't let girls take shop back in my day. And then I continued sewing. I made clothing first.
Okay.
Then got bored with clothing, started doing crafts, knitting, crocheting, embroidery, crewel work, cross stitch. Then started with the soft cloth animals.
Okay.
And then finally I got into quilting. I started making actual quilts.
After high school?
Oh no, we're talking 1990.
Okay.
So I'm grown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But I've always done some kind of handwork.
Okay. So the transition from going to knitting and embroidery and crocheting, that kind of went over time. Now when you finally got the quilting, what was okay, I'm really gonna dive into quilting now. What was that motivation for you?
Learning different skills, different techniques.
Okay.
It's still working with fabric. It's a little more creative, but there's still patterns to follow.
Okay.
And it was for relaxation. I am a retired teacher.
Okay.
And I found doing the quilting, the needlework, the crocheting, any of it was relaxing.
Okay. Makes sense. Do you plan to pass it down to your, children and nieces and nephews?
My son knows how to sew. He can sew on a button.
Okay.
Uh, I did take some of his artwork and use them in quilts. So he has, and we won a ribbon
Okay.
at the Solderly Plantation Quilt Show.
Where is that?
Solderly Plantation is in Hollywood, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, St. Mary's County. They no longer do that quilt show. They've now opted for wine festivals because it's easier. You don't have to do as much prep.
Okay.
And they raise more money.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's so we're talking 96, 98, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When you first started quilting, do you remember the moment you were learning with your grandmother while you were quilting and how that felt for you?
I was excited because I was working with her. I spent most of my childhood with my grandmother.
Okay.
Okay, my parents were alive. But they worked, and I spent the week with grandma.
Okay.
And then went home on the weekends.
Mm.
So she was a housewife, and she did lots of things during the day. She cooked, she cleaned. Certain times of the year, she canned fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
She always had a garden that she was busy with. So sewing was, part of her day.
Okay. She was a very multi-talented person.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you would like to, I guess, share about your connection to Prince George's County? I guess specific towards quilting, anything like that?
Well, I'm responsible for Uhuru.
Okay.
I'm the founder. Back in '94, when I was starting out as getting serious about quilting, I read in a magazine called Quilters Newsletter about the National Association of African American Quilters.
Okay.
And they were going to have a convention, and they met in Baltimore. And it was started by a woman named Barbara Piatello.
Okay.
And
you know how to spell that? I'm sorry.
Pietila.
Gotcha.
And I contacted her, went to a meeting up there, and then asked her for the names of people in this area who were members of NAC and might be interested in getting together on a monthly basis, weekly basis, to talk about quilting, to work on quilts together, to help each other grow. Because I was a beginning quilter and I knew I needed help.
Right.
And so 8 of us met in March of 1994. And we at the Oxon Hill Public Library. And we just decided we wanted to continue meeting. So we chose a name for the group. The logo came along in that same year, but it was a couple of months later.
Okay.
We, outgrew the library, I think, within the first 2 months. And then we started meeting at different rec centers around the county.
Okay.
And now, after 25 years, we have about maybe 103, 105 members.
Okay.
We still meet usually on the third Saturday of every month. Sometimes we have to change that depending on the space where we're renting. And we've done a lot. We've done children's workshops. We've exhibited at the Smithsonian, at the Corcoran Art Gallery. We've done lots of different trunk shows and community events with parking planning. We had an exhibit here in 2010, I think, yeah, 2010. And sewing, quilting, those kinds of crafts are coming back. We're still trying to get young people interested, since home ec is not really taught anymore. It's not required in school anymore. So a lot of young people don't know that people still do things with their hands.
Okay.
And, you know, beading, making jewelry, making art.
How would you describe the atmosphere of your quilting group? So say you meet on that third Saturday. What is the atmosphere like?
Oh, it's very social. We have people who've been coming for along with me for a whole 25 years, and some people just started last month.
Okay.
And we try to make sure it's supportive. We try to make sure that people can get involved in an activity no matter what their level of quilting. Last weekend we were at the original Sewing and Quilt Expo in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We exhibited quilts from beginners, like their first quilt, very first quilt, as well as people who've been quilting for 30, 40 years and they're on their 199th quilt. So we try to encourage people, you know, to get out there, get your work out there. I've got some people that are professionals, you know, as well as the beginners. They're selling their work, they're teaching at other guilds and other shows around the country. I've got people who are interested in becoming quilt appraisers and also quilt judges. I've got a contact with the people who do the training for the different county fairs in the area. And I'm going to follow up on that lead, and maybe someone, you know, 2 or 3 other people as well as me will be able to get that training. Okay.
And I guess one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I know you talked about connecting with the youth, showing them, you know, the way to quilt. What do you think quilting can show and help? Maybe show the youth something that will help them with quilting, if that makes sense. Like, how do you think quilting will raise it?
Well, let's take something like a t-shirt, sweatshirt, okay? And I'm sorry I didn't bring anything with me.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't think about it. But with most young people now, you've got probably drawers full of t-shirts and sweatshirts that you can't wear anymore, but they're important to you because they represent a part of your life, like when you were in the Boys and Girls Club, or when you went to Disney World, or went somewhere that was, an important event in your family reunion shirts, when you went to your first Wizards game, something like, you know, all those shirts, or your different school shirts.
Yeah.
Like every school has a t-shirt that people wear on School Spirit Day.
Yeah.
You can make, they don't just have to stay in your um, trunk, your closet. You can make a quilt with them, or make a pillow, or make a wall hanging, so that you can take it with you when you go to college or go to summer camp, or and you can let people know something about you, and you can take your memories with you. And when you feel homesick, when you feel sick, and you wish mom could be there, you got something that can, and it's yours, and you made it, and there's pride in, and there's a sense of accomplishment that you get when you make something and you made it. Not somebody made it for you, but you made it. One of the last things that I did before I retired from the school system was I helped some friends and start the middle school at Prince George's Community College. It's not a middle school. What is that? It's the Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College. And when those students graduate, they have their high school diploma and also an associate's degree. And it's all free. And it's usually, if you want to continue and get your bachelor's, many schools will give you a full scholarship. So it's a good program. But you have to give up some stuff. Like there's no football team. There's no basketball team. you know, some of the activities that you would expect at a regular high school, they don't have. But anyway, that first year, we had ninth graders coming in from every middle school in the county. And the school was brand new. It had no traditions. Yeah. It had no identity. You know, like, what high school did you go to?
I went to DeMatha.
DeMatha. What's DeMatha's mascot?
Stag.
A stag. They had no mascot. You know, they had no colors. All of that had to be created. Okay? And then they had to stop thinking, well, I'm from Thomas Pullen. I'm from William Wirt. I'm from Oxon Hill Middle. And become, I'm a middle college student, or I'm an academy student. Yeah. And so we made a quilt. And each student had a block in the quilt. And they had to, the block was about you, whatever you thought was important for other people to know about you. And in the making of that quilt, by the time we finished, I think students had a better idea of who they were and how they represented that school.
That's good. Thank you.
And they even had music. They even had a rap to go with it.
That's cool.
We made a film.
Okay.
As we finished.
Cool. Well, thank you. This is great. Thank you for interviewing with us.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
No problem.